So a couple of shows ago in Tucson, I visited with a well-known, well-respected rough dealer, and I asked him if he'd obtained any rough during the show that was especially noteworthy. And he had a smile on his face and pulled out a small parcel of Cobalt Blue Spinel, which is not often found on the market. And we both started to examine the parcel. Well, my brain short-circuited, and no matter what my own eyes tried to tell me, my brain kept saying, wow, Cobalt Blue Spinel, I gotta have a piece or two. Awesome. So naturally, I skipped the most basic of basics and did not conduct the simple white paper test, which many of you are saying as you look at this stone on the video. No need for a white paper test, that is one dark gemstone. Well, as you can tell, I am the proud owner of some dark Cobalt Blue Spinel rough. And true, there are some designs that sometimes help with dark rough. That's what my brain kept telling me. So I need to find a design to help with this dark rough. Cross my fingers and see what happens. The other problem with very dark rough is that it's hard to see what's inside the stone. Spinel is notorious for its inclusions. So much so that its inclusions are often pushed as selling points, as things of beauty. Like any art, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, and personally I prefer clean gemstones. And well, here's a spoiler, and not really a surprise, this stone has needles in it. What they are, I don't know. I'm calling them rutile, and leaving it at that. But hey, maybe these are bohemite tubes, which some people look for. And when you look at this finished gemstone, if you can't keep your eyes off of it because of these inclusions, good for you. Jeff Graham once designed a cut called cornered, and he designed it to help with darker rough. So I think I'll give this design a shot. Jeff put a number of his designs into the public domain, and this is one of them. I showed you in a previous video how to go to Jeff's old websites, which was deleted after he passed away. The video is called Faceting a Madeira Citrine with a Trillion Design. Now there are many other designs that Jeff put into books, and these designs are not in the public domain. For those designs, you'll need to purchase one of the books. I haven't seen his books come up in any used book site, but I haven't looked that closely. I hear that the Rock Peddler offers Jeff's books. If any of you out there know for sure, please let us know in the comments. There's a couple other things you can try with dark rough. One is to cut the piece of rough into smaller pieces. So the second piece of spinel that I bought, and yes, I could not just stop at one, I had to buy two. So for the second piece, sometime in the future, I believe I'll cut it into two pieces and make a matching pair of earrings. Hopefully by cutting that piece into half, that will lighten up the rough. Other than that, the only other thing you can do with some rough that's dark is to heat it. But I've never tried heating stones, and I really don't want to do that. I'll leave that for others. So cornered it is. This is a piece of Cobalt Blue Spinel from Sri Lanka. It's 4.89 carats. And we're going to dop this up. Alright, we're going to start pre-forming our Cobalt Blue Spinel with a 360 topper, and we'll go from there. I finished pre-forming with the 360, and then I went to the 600 grit diamond, and so now got it all pre-formed, and I'm ready to start with the 1200. Now, the first tier wants you to cut to a center point, and I'm not quite at a center point, but it's very close. And you'll also notice I haven't cut the third set of instructions for the pavilion. Those will give me the 8 kind of stars. And the reason I haven't cut them with the 360 or the 600 is that they're going to cut very fast. So I'll cut them now that I'm at the 1200, and I may leave them a little short so that when I get to the 3000, they'll hit right on the mark, because again, they're going to cut fast. Okay, I finished pre-polishing with the 1200 lap, and it looks like it's starting to get a little color out of our stone. All right, I was going to pre-polish the third set of instructions with the 1200, but it also cuts too fast still, so there's no need to. I'll wait until I get to the 3000 or maybe the 8000. I started to cut it right here. This was the first instruction, but it immediately cut all the way down, so it cuts too fast. So I'm not going to cut that set of instructions yet. I'm going to wait until I get to the 3000 or the 8000. But it's coming along, and it looks like there's a little bit of blue in there. We'll keep going and see how we do after the 3000. Okay, so in gem cutting there's always compromises to make or decisions to make. In this case, you can see the girdle line here. This part right here, this is all just glue. I can't cut down much further or I'll have a problem with the crown. And to avoid that, if I cut down any further, I will have to cut in on my second set of instructions for the girdle and make the girdle smaller, which would make the stone width smaller. So if I don't want to make the stone width smaller, I can't go down much further at all. The problem is, let me show you, I haven't closed out our center point yet. Normally what you do when you don't have the center point is you cut down a little further until you get a center point. It wouldn't take much, but again, if I do that, then I have to bring the width of the stone in and make it smaller. So the options are, again, cut down further and make it a smaller stone, or change the angle of our P1 instruction. Now when you change the angle, it's important you don't go below the critical angle of that gemstone type. And in the case of Spinel, the critical angle is 35.79. If we go below that, then light will pass through the top of the stone, and instead of being reflected back, it'll pass through the bottom of the stone, and it'll be what's called a dead stone, no brilliance to it. So we don't want to go below the critical angle. The P1 first tier currently is 40.98 degrees. So I have room to play with. So I'm going to drop it down to, I don't know, I'll try 40 degrees, changing that angle slightly, and then I'll change the third tier, which I haven't cut yet, to 38. That's the one where I told you it cuts fast, so you don't need to cut it right away. See here, I started to cut it and just barely touched it, and it cut very fast. So I wouldn't cut the third set of instructions until I get to maybe now the 3000 grit or maybe the 8000 grit. Or if it cuts really fast, you just polish it in. So I'm going to change the angles of our facets here to close out this center point. If 40 degrees doesn't work, I'll try 39 or 39.5. As long as I stay above 35 degrees, 35.78, I'll be okay. I finished polishing the pavilion, or the bottom half of our Cobalt Blue Spinel, and I'm ready to transfer it so that we can cut the upper half of the stone of the crown. Okay, to transfer my Spinel, I'm going to put a piece of modeling clay in the very bottom of the cone-shaped dop, just so that the culet, or the very bottom part of the gemstone, doesn't have any problems with the glue that I'm using sticking and causing the culet to break. So it doesn't happen very often, but I want it to never happen. So with a little bit of modeling clay in the bottom, the adhesive can't pull the culet off the stone. The modeling clay will give before the stone does. Okay, we've got the transfer jig set up. We're going to put some adhesive two-part epoxy into the bottom part and then push the top dop into the bottom one and do the transfer. So I use JB Weld two-part epoxy. Some of you have asked why I use JB Weld. There's no real reason. It works and it's readily available in Home Depot. And I like these bigger bottles. I'm not saying that any other two-part epoxy won't work. So what you do is you make a kind of an even puddle of the two parts of the epoxy. You're supposed to have a 50-50 mix. Just eyeball it. There's no other way to really measure this accurately. Then once you start mixing the epoxy together, that's when you only have a couple of minutes before it starts to set up. So you have a little bit of time to work it onto the stone, get everything just the way you want it before it hardens up. Put a little bit of epoxy into the top, kind of fill that cone, push the top onto the bottom, tighten it up, turn it over so that some adhesive goes onto the stone. You don't want it running down the girdle. So as the adhesive is setting up, you may need to turn your transfer jig over a couple of times so that the adhesive doesn't go onto the girdle and that it doesn't run all the way down into the lower part of your dop, because then you would have a problem putting it into the quill. So we'll work on another stone and let this two-part epoxy set overnight, and then we'll come back and work on our Cobalt Blue Spinel. I've finished pre-polishing our crown with the 1200 grit. I'm using a topper right now, but I need to buy a new Crystallite lap. And this is going to be the way the stone looks. This is cornered. So now I'm going to move to the 3000 grit diamond on a bat lap, then the 8000 and the 14. Okay, I've finished pre-polishing. I'm ready to polish our Cobalt Blue Spinel. But first, there's one area where the inclusion has broken the surface, and I just don't want to leave it the way it is. I guess it's like rutile. I don't know if it's rutile or not, but a rutile little strand came up, and that's what that piece is there. And then this is the inclusion. So what I'm going to do, I don't want to make the stone smaller, and I don't want to change all the angles. So what I'm going to do is introduce a ghost facet right here. Put a little, like a patch over it. I'm going to cut a facet right on top of that inclusion. So I don't think there's no other way to do it other than make the stone smaller. But if I make the stone smaller, I'm just going to have an inclusion show up somewhere else from the problems internally in the stone. So I think that's what I'm going to try. Okay, so there's the facet that I added. Just to make it cleaner, I can't do anything to completely get rid of the hole. This is a needle. In fact, there's 3 needles, and I think they're rutile needles, so they go deep into the stone. But I did clean up a lot of the surface damage when it came and broke the surface. So that's what's called, again, a ghost facet, where it's not part of the design. Unfortunately, it really hurts me to do that because it's not a perfect stone now, but I don't know. Had to make a decision, and that's what I decided to do. So that's the best I can do with this one. Let me know what you think in the comments about what I should have done, might have done, or could do differently next time. I'd greatly appreciate it. Or if I did what you would have done, let me know. Thanks. I'll go on to polish this, and then we'll take a look at it. Okay, I finished polishing our Cobalt Blue Spinel. I used Ultralapse aluminum oxide, and they do a great job of polishing up spinel. I didn't have any problems polishing this stone. The only problem with the stone is that it's an included stone, but it is what it is when it comes to spinel. So what we're going to do now is we've used two-part epoxy, so we get to use boiling water to remove the epoxy from the dop, and then we'll see if we lightened our stone up any by using this corner design. Okay, I put the spinel in water and brought it up to a boil, and I put down a little piece of paper towel just so the stone and dop don't go bouncing around in the boiling water. Oh, it came off. Overall, this is an easy design to cut, and it's fun to cut. A beginner could easily take on this design. As far as helping to bring out the color of dark rough, I would say yes. There is now a little blue showing, so this design does as advertised, but it's still a dark stone, and the lesson learned here is to carefully examine your rough before you buy it. If the rough is too dark, it's too dark, period. But still, I admit it, I absolutely enjoyed cutting this piece of Cobalt Blue Spinel. Happy faceting, everyone.